Hi, my name is Kate Harrison. I'm a Board Certified Behavior Analyst and a Behavior Consultant with Brett DiNovi Associates. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the BACB task FK18 of the 4th edition task list, conditioned reinforcement, and why this is an important term to be familiar with your application of applied behavior analysis. Have you ever been in a situation where you, a parent, or a colleague has said something along the lines of, she just doesn't have any reinforcers, or maybe it sounded like, he will only work for the gummies, or how about, he doesn't want any of his reinforcers? As behavior analysts, we should always be programming for generalization, which requires us to evaluate the reinforcing potential of contingencies in the natural environment. To many of the individuals that we work with, these natural contingencies do not, without intentional pairing, serve as reinforcers. Additionally, we must consider the environment and motivating operations when considering a stimuli reinforcing value. A stimulus may serve as a reinforcer for an individual in one environment under certain circumstances, but may not serve as a reinforcer for the same individual in a different environment under different circumstances. And finally, like the examples mentioned earlier, we may be working with an individual who has a limited repertoire of reinforcing stimuli in which the potential for satiation is quite high. If you've ever been in a situation where your learner has become satiated to your entire bank of reinforcers, you know what a challenge this presents in making meaningful progress. In their 2014 research, Taylor, Santa, and colleagues label identification of reinforcers as an essential step in developing interventions for individuals with autism, and go on to share that while the field has established a large body of research on individual preferences of available reinforcers, there's limited research on specific recommendations for how to conduct or evaluate conditioning procedures. Let's review some terminology. Reinforcement. Regardless of whether it's conditioned or unconditioned, a reinforcer has the defining characteristic of increasing future probability of targeted behaviors. Unconditioned reinforcer. This is a stimulus change that increases future occurrences of targeted behaviors, and the unconditioned means that this occurs without any prior learning history. An unconditioned reinforcer is also called a primary or unlearned reinforcer. An example would be something like a snack. Conditioned reinforcer. This is a previously neutral stimulus that, following the pairing with an unconditioned or pairing with previously conditioned reinforcing stimuli, has acquired the same reinforcing effects as the stimulus in which it was paired. A conditioned reinforcer is sometimes called a secondary or learned reinforcer. An example would be something like a high five, a doll, or Play-Doh if these items increase future behavior. Through conditioning procedures, we have the opportunity to develop new reinforcers, introduce generalized conditioned reinforcement like token economy systems, and the potential to expand a learner's interest in novel activities. Conditioning reinforcers should be carefully considered in programming in addition to assessing reinforcer preference. Prior to proceeding with any pairing procedures, the item should be presented to the learner to see if it sparks any interest. Taylor and colleagues review 5 different pairing procedures used to condition reinforcers. Trace pairing. This is when the neutral stimulus is presented and then terminated before the presentation of the reinforcing stimulus. Stimulus pairing. This happens when a neutral stimulus and a reinforcing stimulus are presented and terminated at the same time. Response stimulus pairing. This is when the just mentioned simultaneous pairing procedure is used but only contingent upon a response. Delay pairing. This is when a neutral stimulus is presented before and with a little bit of overlap with the presentation of the reinforcing stimulus. Pairing using a discrimination training procedure. This is when the neutral stimulus is first established as a discriminative stimulus, or SD, by reinforcing a specific response in its presence. Depending on the individual, the above-mentioned methods for conditioning reinforcers have each displayed success in conditioning new reinforcers for individuals. Cooper and colleagues note that there aren't any standards for physical properties that determine a stimuli's permanent status as a reinforcer. In one condition, a stimulus may serve as a reinforcer, but it might serve as a punisher in another condition. It is for this reason that ABA clinicians should be familiar with not only conducting preference assessments for current repertoires of reinforcers, but also for how to develop new reinforcers by conditioning novel stimuli. Behavior analysis could benefit by expanding on current research to a point in which specific recommendations could be made to guide clinicians in conditioning reinforcers. Determining how to maintain the reinforcing effectiveness of a previously neutral stimuli would be essential in creating such a technology. Do you incorporate conditioning procedures to expand reinforcers in your ABA programming? Do you teach it to your staff? We want to hear from you. Leave your comments in the notes below. Thanks for watching.